League of Legends launched into beta in 2009 and it's been one of the most popular games on the market all this time. I've played the game on and off during the last decade, clocking in thousands of games until ultimately quitting the competitive scene last year altogether. It's been a wild ride with this game, mostly up and up and up, as the game has garnered a huge fan base while providing fresh new content, new champions, and new modes each year. Through time, the game has become quite slick and impressive looking, replacing the cardboard graphics, stiff animations, old client, champion art, and even the map with beautiful new versions. Detail has been poured into everything from the client, to the butterflies flying around the jungle, to the search bar within the shop to make buying items a breeze. To me, it's one of the best looking, best functioning, and best playing MOBAs on the market, period. Which was a far cry from when it released in 2009 looking like this. Not to mention the game has a lot of new modes that all play very differently from one another. This video is going to primarily look at League's Summoner's Rift mode, though I'll touch briefly on some of the alternative modes following the main discussion. So let's look at League of Legends 10 years later. One thing has always been constant in League of Legends since the very beginning: ranked and unranked 5v5 Summoner's Rift. My League history was full of long play sessions climbing the diamond ladder and ordering Pizza Hut with coupons to get me through the marathon. It starts with the classic lottery system to randomize a group of 10 players into 2 opposing teams. The teams are then thrown into the infamous pre-chat lobby for picks, bans, and sometimes a bevy of interesting conversations, and of course argumentation. Before the client update, the pre-game was a source of entertainment and often despair. You can't escape it. If you got unlucky, it was not uncommon for people to immediately start screaming at each other in pre-chat and start fighting over roles. All hell would break loose if 2 people were in a bad mood and they landed on the same team, especially before the pick system was updated. Therein, chaos would ensue in the chat. Profanity would be thrown around like confetti, mothers would be insulted, and chances are one of them would troll pick if you didn't get mid lane. Oh, the joys of when strangers meet on the internet. Naturally, this extended into the game as well. Depending on how things unfolded, much unity or often dissension took place inside the game as everyone was on a different wavelength and skill level. If you were winning, generally people were in a pretty good mood and were nice. But if you start losing, and well, it just turns into a complete shitfest. League of Legends never solved the issue of toxicity, much like Overwatch, Siege, or any game where people come together on the same team and do anything. Unless you muted everyone in the game, chances are you got exposed to some manner of offensive behavior, sometimes in every match. They definitely tried to foster a good community though, I'll give them that. Systems like special ribbons to put on people's portraits were handed out for those who had good behavior. Bans, limited ability to speak, and low priority queues were unleashed to those toxic, not to mention banning season rewards for those people as well. Also introduced was the honor system following the completion of a game to have the community help in the endeavor, as well as the tribunal, which allowed players to decree punishment on toxic players from 2011 to 2014. While they were good ideas, you just have to accept the fact that competitive video games will bring out the worst in people, especially when the game is free and everyone has access. Though I will say toxicity becomes a lot less prevalent in Diamond and Platinum, where people start understanding that yelling doesn't do any good. To keep it fresh, the League eventually split itself up into seasons, where player standings were reset. During this time, a massive patch would be introduced for next season, and that would be chock full of huge changes to items, sometimes champions, and even systems within the game like maps, wards, or client changes. For me, it was always exciting to see the game change since I played it so much, but it also had an adverse effect on those who were trying to learn the game between seasons. Playing a small amount of this game isn't enough to improve, especially when those sweeping changes avalanche at the end of the season, so it's problematic for new players. But changing the game a lot also had some great upsides. First, changes to warding and vision has made the game much more enjoyable and dynamic. Instead of buying green wards, players now get free yellow, blue, or red totems to ward, sweep, or give farsight vision. This allows all players to provide vision control, which cuts down on the demands for the support to provide full map control, which was pretty annoying. Support players also now benefit by having their Sightstone built into their GP5 item, such as the Frostfang and Nomad's Medallion. So instead of dumping money into vision all game, they can now build items to help their team instead, which allows them to be more than just a vision vending machine. These 2 changes were big for support players and eliminated both the pink ward metagame and ward spamming that plagued League of Legends during Season 4 and 5. Secondly, I don't think anyone could ever go back to the old client, which was a buggy mess and included next to no quality of life features for ranked matches. The new client brought in a slick new interface that allowed players to select roles before queuing, and that is something huge. This guaranteed that a player would get in to one of 2 roles he or she selected, which solves a big issue of players just dodging matches and yelling at each other in pre-chat to try to switch roles because they didn't get what they wanted. From my experience, this had a net positive effect in at least curbing some of the initial player toxicity before the game started. Though the discussion of meta should be squeezed in here, and as someone who always plays against the grain, I have some unique opinions on the matter. One of the most annoying things I've seen to this day is players griefing at each other for not picking a quote-unquote meta champion. Prior to Season 1's World Championship, players had no idea what was good and what was bad. The game had just come out and the experimentation phase was far from over. This frontier period was a lot of fun as summoners were testing new items and ways to play the game. At the end of the season though, the World Championship was streamed to the world and players soon picked up on what was good and what was bad from the pros. That you should take Ashe bottom, not mid, and that a support should go with her, that you should send someone to the jungle, and maybe a mage mid. Eventually each season had a meta, and with the click of a button anyone could find out what champions were performing the best, and what items they bought and how they should set up the room pages and masteries associated with them. This became a quandary though, because it cast limitations for what people should and shouldn't do. Many players simply stuck to the meta without even thinking about it and trying to figure out what was best for them in their playstyle, which created problems. Fast forward a few years and players have become addicted to the meta, which leads to bickering when someone wanted to play a champion that wasn't quote-unquote in the meta. I'm someone who enjoys picking off-meta champions because it has some clear advantages. For one, most people don't know how to play against you. For instance, if you play Fiddlesticks mid in Season 4, which is what I did. They were too busy playing against top-tier champions like Aerie, Fizz, or Zed. They had no clue how to trade with you, how annoying your E was, or how devastating it was to max Fear second. Not to mention these people would have no idea that an ult was coming their way at level 6 from the side bush, and I got them every time. Truth be told, I got a lot of flack for playing champions like Alistar, Lee Sin, and Fiddlesticks mid during this season. I can't tell you how often I see this to this very day, this attitude that people must play a meta champion because some spreadsheet on a website says that playing Volibear support is a bad idea. The truth is, any champion can be deadly in the right hands in most roles. Of course, within reason. It just depends on how good the player is with that champion and how much time they've spent learning it. I mean, imagine all the 1500 game Renekton players out there who prove people wrong every match. Just like that player, I would usually go on to carry my games with middlesticks, and you better believe the person that was giving me shit shut up real quick. There was a flip side though, obviously. If I had a bad match, because well people do, I was instantly demonized as a troll because, well, I picked an off-meta champion, which just so happened to confirm all the trash talk I got pre-chat. And that's a great irony of playing off-meta. You have to prove yourself every match to every single person, and you can't fail because, well, meta is so heavily ingrained into the history of League of Legends. Let's go back to the positives though. The changes from runes and masteries to the keystone system was pretty good. In the first couple years, you would purchase runes with the points you accrued by playing the game and equip them on a rune chart. I personally like this system because it gave you some flexibility to create small changes that would affect the power of your champions. The bad part was that it created power imbalances between players naturally. The other system was a traditional skill tree known as the mastery system, where you'd pick the skills you wanted for a particular page. Eventually these two systems were combined in today's keystone system, where you pick skills and small modifiers on a single page with one system instead of two. This is overall an improvement, yet Riot has got to get the balancing right for it. I like it because it's not confusing for new players, and at the same time, it equalizes the playing field. Riot has also done a great job providing new modes to League of Legends. Ultra Rapid Fire is the game's party mode, essentially, and pits people against each other with reduced cooldown reduction, and the games are always a blast. Unlike other modes, URF is actually temporary, and Riot brings it back to coincide with festivals, anniversaries, or events as a way of kind of promoting the game. If they kept in URF permanently, the fear and the theory is that the demand for ranked might diminish enough to impact the popularity of Summoner's Rift. When it does come around though, it's one hell of a good time, and a good mode to get drunk with your friends in and just have some laughs. ARAM, on the other hand, is essentially the game's arcade mode, where all players fight in a one-lane map with random heroes and no recalling for healing. Not only is it a ton of fun, but it provides a good mode to help teach players the mechanics of champions outside of bot battles. I can recall many nights of playing non-stop ARAMs with my friends, drooling over getting picks like Lux, Fiddlesticks, or the dreaded Malphite. It is the go-to mode to play with friends who are not so serious about ranked, or if you just want to take a break from Summoner's Rift. Dominion was another staple mode introduced around 2014. Now, Dominion was received fairly well by the community, but then suddenly retired a few years later. The reason was that Riot wanted additional modes to supplement Summoner's Rift, not replace it. Dominion was a costly mode to maintain, and it peeled players away from ranked and draft play. That was, again, the theory, and it was ultimately discontinued. Under that logic, one has to assume that people who play Summoner's Rift also play ARAM, yet those who play Dominion perhaps mostly only play Dominion. Lastly, Teamfight Tactics is the new round-based strategy mode where 8 players battle to the last man standing. Oddly enough, TFT is unlike anything offered under the League of Legends umbrella and is a permanent mode. Again, it's another great way for some casual League fun when you're not busy dominating the ladder. Not to mention it brings in a new crowd of players, some of which may gravitate eventually towards Summoner's Rift once they learn enough about the game in this mode, so it seems to be a win-win for Riot. What I don't like to this day is champion reworks and how they represent the most questionable change to League of Legends. It's natural to want to go back to old champions and update them over time, seeing as how champions like Nunu were very simple back in the day compared to today's new releases. Champions like Qiyana, Zoe, Sylas, and more are incredibly complicated when you lay them side by side to, let's say, Urgot, Mordekaiser, and Katarina before they got their champion updates. Over the past few years, champions have gotten so mechanically diverse and interesting, which is good and bad. There's never a dull moment in Summoner's Rift today, learning all the technicalities of the 140 plus champions on offer, each with their own unique skills, abilities, itemizations, ratios, matchups, and of course counters. You can spend months mastering Yasuo's intricate wind dancing or Camille's delicate but lethal capabilities, and those are just a couple champions. But go back to Garen or Annie, and it's quite a different story. Most early champions only had a few abilities and were mechanically simple, nothing like Zoe's Spell Thief or Kane's ability to run through walls. So Riot decided to start updating champions, and I don't like the idea of doing it. For one, champions are personal. I mained Alistar for a long time, and I loved the ability for him to heal because it gave me the opportunity to go mid or top if I wanted to. Again, it's an off-meta thing. Alistar no longer has an active heal. It was replaced with another stun, which essentially shackles him into the role of support. So many champions have changed. Sejuani, Urgot, Rengar, Malzahar, Anivia, Swain. Some of the remakes were truly awesome, but some of them just didn't need to happen. Why was Malzahar changed? Why was Anivia's Q changed? What was so wrong with Galio that he had to become a quote-unquote Vanguard? Part of the reason I liked playing Sion back in the day was because it was really fun to run around and try to one-shot people with his stun and shield combo. He was this weird green mutant thing, and he had an axe, and I thought he looked really cool. His rework is awesome, I'll give you that, but it's not the same champion anymore. Why don't they just try to balance it more, or just make another champion with the new Sion skill set instead? Some of the champions that received updates, they definitely deserve them, such as Eve, as she was a nightmare to balance. But even still, when you change the abilities and looks of a champion, it can change everything. A good example of a rework that's done well is the recent Mordekaiser rework. Visually and mechanically, his rework not only takes nothing away from his original identity, but gives him a sweet new combo, a badass ult, and a design that amps up his persona without wrecking it. Ultimately, I understand the need for champion reworks, but I think they've just taken it too far, and ultimately destroyed some of the identities of some of their early champions. And I didn't even get into the fact that when you rework a champion, you have to ask players who have been playing that champion to relearn them. So there's that too. The reason for all the reworks, in addition to the monetary reasons and the balancing I just went over, was to encourage more classification in the end. And nowhere is that more apparent by Riot's persistence in labeling champions marksman, top laner, mage, or support. I don't like the idea of designing a champion for a specific role, which is exactly what they've been doing in the last few years, or encouraging where champions should go or what to buy. This also extends into the actual game now, such as providing timers for all the objectives. These should be elements for the community to figure out to encourage trial and error, which can lead to unexpected and special outcomes, hence why the early seasons of this game were so memorable. This design by Forethought was obviously pursued to drive accessibility to the game by making the guesswork less heavy. Thankfully, the opposite cannot be said about the thought put into the formulation and complexity of new champions. Champions released today have an incredible detail to them and high skill caps, many of which have double the active abilities than some older ones, and the interaction between champions in the pool is huge. So oddly enough, League of Legends is more mechanically challenging than it's ever been, which is the opposite direction that many persistent games head in. As far as a champion and item balance goes, I think Riot has done again a good job with the impossible task of balancing this many champions and introducing new items that don't necessarily break the game. The game is in a stable spot in Season 9 with a multitude of options for itemization and keystones, and more champions are more viable than ever with the new shop. It's just unfortunate that the actual act of playing League of Legends is so hot and cold, and I attribute that primarily to matchmaking. And one thing that's for sure is that the matchmaking system was, is, and has always been complete and utter trash. and Riot is and isn't to blame. Players in League of Legends are balanced around a matchmaking rating that revolves on how well those players do in the ladder system. In a perfect world, 10 players of like skill would be matched up, but as we've all experienced, that rarely happens. A variety of issues stand in the way, including account smurfing, duo queue leeway, a system that seems to punish two players for queuing together by increasing their total MMR because they simply know each other, and the fact that win-loss ratios really say nothing about individual skill. League of Legends is a team-based game, and you can go through long stretches of being unlucky by getting bad, toxic, or selfish players. Having a good attitude can help you curb that loss, but ultimately this idea of winning by being optimistic doesn't happen nearly as people might say. Eventually, 5 people have to lose, and usually it's a team with lower skill or lower team chemistry. I can appreciate when Riot balances the objectives to try to make games more competitive. But the fact is, the system will never be perfect because there's 10 people in a game and they all play differently. That's one of the reasons why I loved League of Legends for such a long time, is because those interactions with the team and trying to see how to overcome challenges and trying to be better than everyone else, it's really compelling in a competitive scene. But at the same time, you're going to lose a lot too. There's going to be games where, from the very start, someone's trolling and you're not going to win that game, and you have to sit through it for 15 to 20 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes if they're unwilling to surrender. It's when the matchmaking actually works and the teams are fair that League of Legends is at its best. I don't know the math behind it, but the matchmaking unfortunately has always felt off. Whether it's in a group or solo, it feels like players' skill in matches is either kind of close or completely off. Having said that though, League of Legends is so popular because it's usually very fun. League has turned into a very slick and well-oiled machine, and it feels great to play. It's got that one more game element to it because the highs are so high when you win, but of course that means the lows can be just as extreme. Still, win or lose, I've always found the latter to be extremely addictive. The new champions interesting, the map updates very welcome, and other changes like how wards function crucial to making this game better. Its consistent updates have allowed the game to still feel fresh after all this time, 10 years later. Yet ironically, it still carries the same flaws it's always had: toxicity, balance, and perhaps making too many changes. Some things will never come back, like playing Mordekaiser 1v2 top, or buying 5 Sunfire Capes on Eve and burning people alive in the shadows. Or how about the League of Black Cleavers, or having the ability to crit a Nasus Q at 700 stacks. Or the time Cyan ran rampant as one of the most devastating AD bruisers that ever lived. And that's what I remember about League of Legends. Not where it's ended up, but all the crazy, wacky, and unpredictable things that it has led us to today. If you're a new player 10 years later, League is both inviting and kind of intimidating. Bot battles provide a great training ground for players and teaching them the mechanics, and players can use ARAM as a tool to refine their skills. But ultimately, when they jump into Summoner's Rift, it's a seasoned war zone out there full of veterans, noobs, and smurfs all mixed up into one pie now. Going back to League of Legends after 10 years of on and off addiction, I found a buttery and slick version of the game I used to love. Everything is so streamlined, so many systems have been improved, and Riot is still bankrupting people with amazing new skins. But I miss the old days. I miss the wild, wild west when no one knew what they were doing, where anything went, and the discovery of playing League's first few seasons felt like magic. It's still a good game though today, and it's impressive to see how far the game has come after 10 years. And I truly wonder where the game and the MOBA genre is going to be in another 10 years. Maybe you guys have some thoughts, so leave them down below in the comment section, and thanks very much for watching guys. Take care and have a great day.